Welcome to the InsideLBI podcast. Today we are here with the co-owner and coffee aficionado of You Brewin, Dan Malay. Good to have you.
Yes, thanks for having me.
Sure. Before we get started, I just want to say that Dan and I have been close friends for a while now. We started the LBI Chamber of Commerce. Well, we didn't start it, but we are the Chamber of Commerce, basically. Well, Dan's a Chamber of Commerce. I'm a figurehead lobbyist kind of person, but it's worked out very well. And it's because of the Chamber of Commerce that we have this podcast equipment. And I think we're putting it to good use finally by capitalizing on the Beach House Realty co-brokering of the podcast equipment and getting to talk to people who are owning businesses on LBI and who are good friends of ours. So, and Dan certainly is the top of that list. So tell us, Dan, how did You Brewin get started?
Good question. So I actually started in the coffee business with my wife in 2004 under a different brand name. Not a lot of people know that, but we started in 2004 in Barnegat Light with our first location, which operated under the brand Village Brew, which was kind of commensurate with our location there in Viking Village. We got a call in 2006 from the owners of You Brewin. They were operating in Ship Bottom at the time and indicated that they needed to sell and asked if we were interested in a second location. So long story short, negotiations with them, purchased their name and their equipment and rebranded our original location to match and found the home we are still at in Surf City and opened the doors to You Brewin where it is now in May of 2007.
I asked this question because I've been part of the conversation about creating a franchise to franchise the operation. And so I was going to ask you a question about a coffee shop, and then I'm like, well, I don't really think we call it a coffee shop. So how do you describe your business?
Yeah, we try to, so we always talk about the three lanes in the coffee industry: coffee shop, coffee house, and cafe. And they have some distinctive differences. So we try to be, in our Surf City location, it's the larger location, and that would be what we call a coffee house. And then the first location in Barnegat Light, because of size and limited offerings, would be that coffee shop lane.
If there were to be a third location, let's say there might be one in Florida someday, what would that be?
Yeah, we're trying to dwell in that coffee house lane. That's what we sense is kind of our sweet spot and what the community's looking for. So that's the lane that we're in.
So Caitlin went over this morning to the Surf City location to get some coffee, which now that you're aficionado, we're gonna be asking you to taste your own coffee and tell us what brand it is, what flavor. So, but did you ever? And she said it's crazy there. I couldn't get a parking spot.
Nope.
Did you ever think it was going to be this crazy busy, or this successful?
No, not at all. When we started in 2004, it was really intended to be a kind of a side hustle for us. We were actually living in South Florida at the time. I was going to college at night, working during the day, and I was working at a private school in Fort Lauderdale, which was a school year position. So we had summers off. We would come back to LBI every summer and visit, family and friends. And so this was like, hey, let's start a summer business as a side hustle to supplement our income. And no, never thought we'd be, a few years later, packing our life back up and coming back to LBI because the businesses were starting to take off and they ultimately became our primary gig. So no, not at all.
Well, you've before you moved to Florida, were you a policeman first and a pastor second, or were you always a pastor?
Yeah.
I think it's important that people know that you were a Ship Bottom policeman and Ocean Township, Monmouth County police officer, as well as a local pastor, which came first, God or coffee?
An interesting professional career. Law enforcement was first, almost right out of high school, age of 20. I started with the Ship Bottom Police Department, and 3.5 years later went up to Monmouth County for kind of what I thought was bigger and better in law enforcement. And for me, it wasn't for me. So 7 years total later, we were packing things up and moving to South Florida so I could focus on education. I did go to Bible college and then on to seminary, which is what you're referencing there. And then, a short time as an executive pastor at two different churches But again, the coffee thing became such a thing that it really required my full-time attention and Lori's full-time attention. And I don't think we could do it. I don't think we'd be where we are today if it weren't for kind of the both of us diving in. We're good at such different things. She's good at what I'm terrible at, and vice versa. And I don't like to do the things she's good at, and she hates doing the things I'm good at. So it works out really well.
Great. When you think about LBI, there's a number of different places where people can purchase coffee, from Wawa to formerly, Cafe Braccio, whatever the heck it was. Do you see any competition for How You Brewin here? Do you think somebody is your competition or no?
It's a good question, and I remember a few years back. 2014 was probably the first time. We're 7 years into it under the How You Brewin brand, and first sort of, I'll say competition knocking on the door, if you will. And I sought out the counsel of a friend of mine, Bob Lieber, who is a long-standing, multi-decade career in marketing, and just kind of picked his brain on, we weren't used to competition for the first, bunch of years. And he gave me some really good counsel at the time, which really kind of helped us position ourselves to absorb competition by what he called accentuating your competitive advantage. And so we tried to dwell in a lane that, kind of protects us or insulates us from competition because we're just a little bit different. And that's what our focus is on. And that's why I think, the coffee house lane for us, big hangout space, lot of seats, is something that, not many people are positioned to be able to do. And that's our sweet spot.
And it's certainly
working well.
Yeah, it's working really well.
Thanks.
And you have a variety of people. So tell us about, what do you look for in the people that you hire?
Great question. I say often when we're kind of going through interviews or assessing it as a management team, the needs for our staffing is, we can teach skill, but we can't teach integrity. And so, we really interview for integrity and character, and those aren't things that are always super easy to assess in an interview. But, you work hard to, deploy some discernment and get a sense, this person is solid. There's an integrity level there that we can't teach. And I guess we're slightly arrogant enough to believe that we can teach anybody to execute on coffee, but you can't teach, integrity.
And so have you been surprised by anyone that wasn't, like, how's your turnover rate? Employee turnover rate?
I think for the industry, it's low. We were actually at a trade show recently, coffee trade show, and there was a workshop on staff retention. And, the instructor kind of went around the room and talked about, asking people to share what their turnover rate was. And, the turnover rate in the industry is about 50% annually, which ours is not that high. So, we feel pretty good with where we're at.
How do you refer to your people? And some people are, baristas here at Beach House Realty. We refer to everybody as our partner. It's a partnership. We refer to our competition as, collaborators. We're in this together kind of thing. So
Love it.
What do you call your folks?
I guess, beyond the kind of the obvious, baristas and managers and food team, I always find myself using the word staffer. I don't know why. Kind of get busted on, like, are we political figures? Like, what's up with staffer? But honestly, and I know this may sound cliche, but they're our family. I mean, our staff, Lori and I are empty nesters, so we see at the height of the season, we have between the three locations, 60 people on staff, and they really are our kids. The demographic of our staff is predominantly 20-somethings. Both my kids are 20-somethings, so staffers, kids, my kids.
Right. I hear you. I feel the same way about the people that work at Beach House Realty. What drives your love for the coffee business, or is it the coffee business, or what is it? What is it that makes you so excited to get up in the morning? And you're always excited about the business. I mean, you're always excited about life. So, share with us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I love that question. I find myself saying often to the team, if we're here to sell coffee and collect money, that's not interesting to me. So we want to be about something bigger than that. So I think one of the most attractive elements to being in the coffee industry is the community-centric nature of it. A coffee shop or a coffee house, in a community is so often, the hub of the community, kind of the social center, the place where people meet up. And we just went through a whole mission statement rewrite to really capture that, with our new mission statement being curate a hub of one anothering. And so the people aspect, the social aspect, the gathering aspect, this concept of one anothering that we're really grasping and taking hold of is by far the most rewarding part of being in the coffee industry.
How many people who own coffee shops or businesses at LBI do you think have a mission statement?
Everybody should. One of the things that we talk to our new team about all the time is the question isn't, is it a good idea, but how does it accomplish our mission? And, if we try to do everything that's a good idea, we're going to confuse our customers. We're going to, is this a coffee shop? Is this a candle shop? What are they trying to do here? So we want to be what we call mission-centric.
Okay.
And everybody should, I think, strive to do that.
I know Bob Lieber is one of your mentors in business. Yep. And who else have you looked to for advice and counsel in the big picture, the day-to-day, that kind of thing?
Yeah. I think locally, certainly you. Our friendship over the years has been an incredible blessing to me. I've learned from you every time we talk. I think Bob.
Thank you for that.
Of course, Bob is the same. I think locally, it's an extension of friendships. I'm not a big chit chat guy. Like my conversations, I really just enjoy. One anothering. I hate to keep going back to that, but just learn from each other, pick each other's brain. I think, globally in terms of, business influence, and I know he comes with some baggage, but Gary Vaynerchuk has really informed a lot of my entrepreneurial thinking. There's some others. There's a podcast, Main Street Business, that's probably my favorite. But yeah, I think locally it's friends and mentors, and then, globally, books, podcasts.
Should we have some kind of shameless plug for Brian Wainwright and the people at Fantasy Island? And
absolutely. And I'm ashamed that I forgot about Brian, because clearly a guy that every time I sit down with him, it's an MBA class. It really is. So
it really is. I don't think he has an MBA, but certainly we'll be getting him on here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Maybe we'll have you join us for a conversation with Brian.
That'd be a lot of fun.
It'll be a lot of fun and
He's
very
brilliant.
interesting. He's a brilliant guy. Yeah, his story when he comes on our podcast, people will be blown away by
for sure
what he's accomplished. In terms of books, Think and Grow Rich is one of my favorites. What kind of books do you recommend to people? Business, life, other than the Bible?
I tend towards the more vision and strategy side of business writings. My favorite is Rocket Fuel. Rocket Fuel, the concept of the book is that every good organization needs to have two types of people at the helm, a visionary and an implementer. And if you don't have both, you're going to struggle. And the book helps you understand that need and that concept, and also understand and discover which are you, and then gives you then the opportunity to work to your strengths, staff to your weaknesses. Fortunately, I'm the visionary and my wife's the implementer, so it's perfect. But that's a highly recommended book.
Oh, thank you for that tip. It's probably something I should be reading. And tell us, would you recommend anyone else to get into your business?
Yes and no. I think, it's less about, hey, come on in. It's a great industry. And I think sometimes there's a misconception about the coffee industry. Like it's easy. It's not easy. But I think if someone's wired to be an entrepreneur, it's a natural skill and inclination for them that they should jump into business, and they should jump into business in a lane in an industry that, grabs their heart, that they're passionate about. It's been wisely said, if you love what you do, you don't work a day in your life. And I think that that's true. So if that's coffee, yeah. But, that's not the case for everybody. And, it would be wise for anyone who has that inclination towards entrepreneurship to, I think Tim Ferriss in his book, The 4-Hour Work Week, which is another good book, he says, what would you do if you had, $1 billion in the bank, what would get you out of bed? Go do that. And I think that that's pretty wise.
Yeah, I'd still come to work.
Yeah.
But I'd still come to work in between taking the jet to Ireland and Florida.
I love that.
And golfing.
And golfing. Well, I would be golfing in Ireland and Florida.
Oh, okay, perfect.
That
Yep.
goes without saying. But we have one final question, which will be asked by Caitlin since it's her question.
Oh,
So we're trying to make it a little fun towards the end here. So we're going to ask you a fun question, and then we're going to do a blind taste test of your coffee. See if you can guess what you're tasting.
yeah.
But before we get to that, if you could have one superpower, what would it be?
Teleporting. Because I think it would just ease my schedule a lot. I could get around really easy.
Yep.
That's
a good one.
My schedule is probably the most stress-inducing thing in my life. So if I could cut out a lot of back and forth, teleporting would definitely be it.
Yeah.
Well, we certainly thank you for
Yeah,
your
thank you.
time.
Of course.
And it's always great to see you
Too, buddy.
and hear more about your business. And Caitlin, take it away.
So now we're going to get into our blind taste test to see if you could guess which of your coffees are sitting in front of you. So going from the left to the right is 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
So just go down the line and see if you can
All
guess
right.
what
And I'm
coffee
just
is
going to
which.
mention that I'm more of an espresso drinker. So
All right.
I'm going to do my best here. Drip coffee now and again, but love my espresso. And we do have 24 coffees, so this is a lot of
All right. Well,
pressure.
this is what's on tap today.
I love it. Okay.
Did
So-
you memorize what you were
Did you
serving
stop in
today?
this morning? Did
no,
you see
I
what's
didn't,
on?
actually,
Okay.
so
All right.
This is good. Truly blind.
Yep.
All right, so the first one. All right, so the first one's a dark roast. We have 2, Costa Rican and French roast. And I'm going to guess French roast.
That's correct.
All right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Costa Rican's like the higher end of the 2 dark roasts for you listeners out there looking for French roast is good every day.
Pretty good. Yeah. All
Okay.
right. Number 2.
Number 2. Okay, I can smell that it's a flavored. We have
Correct.
12 flavors.
12 flavors. Hazelnut.
narrow it down?
It's probably hazelnut.
That's pretty prominent.
I'm going to guess coffee cake, our most popular
Pretty close.
one.
Pretty close. It's the
Okay.
Vermont maple.
Okay.
Yep.
Very
Similar
good.
flavors.
That's
a good-
actually a coffee flavor, Vermont. Coffee cake and Vermont maple. Okay.
The
Vermont.
coffee cake is actually one of my favorites.
Is that right?
That's the number one seller for
Yeah,
sure.
It's
What
really
if we
good.
can get somebody to run over and get us some of that?
It's not on tap.
It's not.
It's not out.
It's not out
Yeah.
today.
Not today.
Okay.
I would have got that.
All of our flavors are signed a day of the week. I don't have that memorized clearly,
Yeah.
but, or I get this right. But,
Let's get Lori in here.
third one.
We know she memorized that.
So third one has that florally, fruity smell, which is typically an African coffee. And we only have one of those, so I'm going to guess Tanzanian.
Correct. Ding, ding, ding.
All right. Finally,
Last but not least.
I'm going to should cleanse the palate, but I'm going to skip that.
This might be Irish coffee, so we might have pumped a little J-Mo in there for you.
Nice medium roast. We have 2 LBI blend and house Colombian, which is a single origin. I'm going to guess LBI.
Nope, it's the Colombian.
All right, single
Pretty
origin.
close, though.
Yeah.
You narrowed it down to 2.
Very good.
Yeah.
All right, I bet at 500. That's all.
pretty
Yeah.
good. That's
material.
Yeah.
that's awesome.
Better than the Yankees are doing right now.
Well, Dan, thank you very much. Good seeing you as always, and
Yeah,
thank
thanks,
you
Dan.
for an informative session about yourself, the business, and the coffee spot on LBI and how you brewing. And Caitlin, where will we see you next?
See you at the beach.
Thanks, guys.
See you at
Appreciate
the
it.
beach.
Thank you.
Take care.